no purpose for me. I'm just must be some kind of freak accident that this bad thing would happen to me. And along comes Jesus, who sees his suffering and answers the question that has been talked about for thousands of years and says, this happened. This happened to this man, that the works of God might be displayed in him. And he made the guy see. I just think I have this belief in my mind that when I see Jesus, see him face to face like I've never seen him before, that suddenly all the pain and all of the suffering and every difficulty that I've ever had to go through will suddenly be redeemed and will suddenly be worth every bit of it when I see him face to face. This guy never sees anybody. And one day some man comes along, opens his eyes so that he can see, and one of the first things he sees is the face of Jesus Christ. God had a purpose. And God has a purpose for your suffering. The third and final thing I want to encourage you to do comes from verse 4. Jesus says, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. This is awesome. I love this. Jesus is such a man of action. Because Jesus just settled this huge debate among the Jews. You get this from reading the Gospels, right? The Jews just love to ask difficult questions and then spend the next 3 days talking about what was going on. They were philosophers, right? They loved to sit around and contemplate the meaning of all of this stuff, right? And so Jesus comes along, he answers this gigantic question. And instead of sending his disciples off for the next 5 days on a retreat to think about what he said and to contemplate how this solves mysteries that have been veiled for thousands of years, he immediately calls them into action. He gives them absolutely no time. They should have gone on a tour. They should have written books and done book signings and put on seminars because Jesus just revealed to them this great knowledge from God. And yet he calls them immediately into action. He says, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. I love this. So many times people ask Jesus questions and he doesn't give them a straight answer. He takes it a different direction. He moves on to something more important, like that's not even what we need to be talking about. This time he actually gives them an answer. And it's as if he gives them this answer so that he can give them this command. The answer is, this happened that the works of God might be displayed. The command is, we must work. If the reason for this man's suffering is that the works of God might be displayed, then doesn't it seem fit that the reason for a lot of other people's suffering is that the works of God might be displayed? And then doesn't it seem logical then that we should actually go do the works that might be displayed? We've got a mission. We've got a command here. We've got something that we need to do. And so Jesus calls them into action. And he says it this way. Let's think very carefully about the wording that Jesus uses here, because I think it's very significant. And he answers a couple questions with his answer. First he says, we must work. Jesus doesn't say, if you like what I said about suffering, maybe you'll consider, or I hope that this inspires you to. He says, we must work. We have to do it. We should be compelled. We should be driven. We should feel like if we don't do these things, then we have missed the point of being alive. We must work. And then he answers the question of what work must we do. He says, we must work the works of him who sent me. In other words, the works of God the Father. We must do it. And what we must do is the works that God has been commanding us all along to do. The Bible is full of what the works of God are. And you're very familiar with what those are, so I don't want to spend a lot of time. But understand the work that Jesus commands His disciples now to do is the works of God the Father. And then He answers the question of when we should do it. When should we do these things, Jesus? While it is day. We must work the works of Him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. You see, Jesus was given a very limited amount of time to accomplish His mission on earth. It was all the time He needed. He never sinned, He never did anything wrong, and so He did it in perfect timing. He didn't need more time, He didn't need less, He did it just in the right amount of time, because that's what He did. But I want you to understand this, Jesus was given a very limited amount of time to accomplish what God put Him on the earth to do. You and I are given a very limited amount of time. And the kicker is, we don't even know how limited it is. It might be more limited than you think. But we are certainly given a limited amount of time. So when do we do it? While it is day. That means while you're alive. While you're still here. Why? Why do you have to do it while you're still here? Well, duh, because there's coming a night time when no one can work. That means you're not going to be here anymore. You can't come back here after you leave here and do all the things you realize you should have done. You have to do them. You have to do them today. While it is day, while you're still alive, you need to do the works of God. And so Jesus gives him this command. We must work the works of Him who sent me while it is day. So the last thing I want to encourage you to do today is work the works of God. Write down on your paper this third thing. I must. Underline it, circle it, whatever you want to do, but get the point here. You must. Write down, I must do the works of God. There is a reason you're here. There is a purpose for your life. You must do what God has put here. Do it, and do it now. Do it while you're still alive, while you still have time. Don't waste your life. Don't drown in self-pity or in your own sorrows of thinking, why does it have to be this way? Know that Jesus sees your suffering. He has a purpose for it. So get busy doing what God placed you on this earth to do. Do it, and do it today while you still can. I want to start to conclude this message. I can't vouch for the other people I mentioned at the beginning of this message, but I can vouch for my own family. When I tell you that Reagan has faced these struggles and where she's at still today, although we thank God for great, great progress and all of that, and we have great hopes for her future. And I talk about that often, so I hope I don't need to put this in that context. I hope you understand all of that. We're very encouraged by what's happening with Reagan. But regardless, even if that were all to end today, and we were to go backwards in our progress, I want you to know that God has brought so much good through our suffering, which I understand is minuscule compared to what many of you, even in this room, are suffering. I understand that, so please don't think I'm trying to exalt our suffering above yours and say, well, must be worse than yours, because I don't believe that at all. But God has brought so much good through what we've gone through and through what we've experienced. In fact, I dare to say, although it's been the toughest thing the last 3 years of our lives, I think it's been the best thing.